Okay, moving on to the next team in the ACC that we will be going over today. That will be the team that I have projected to come in sixth place in the conference. That is Jim Larrañaga and his Miami Hurricanes. And I think Miami is actually one of the more intriguing teams in the ACC because I think Miami is very hit or miss, and they have a lot of boom or bust potential. And I say that for a couple reasons. Number one, I feel like if you ask the casual college basketball fan, they will tell you that Jim Larrañaga is one of the better coaches in the country. They know that he's been at Miami for a pretty long time, but I feel like over the last couple of years, Miami has been a little disappointing. And I know Miami isn't this great elite basketball program that's known to be significantly good or anything, but I do feel like Jim Larrañaga, when he won the ACC title his first or second year as the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, when Shane Larkin was in college and that team, it was so fun to watch. It's crazy how long ago that is now. It feels like just yesterday. But I thought after that run, Miami was going to be one of the premier programs in the ACC. And I don't think they've been a bad program or anything. I just think they need to be a little bit better and a little more consistent. You remember a couple of years ago, Jim Larrañaga brought in a team that I really liked, built around Lonnie Walker, and they were good. They made the NCAA tournament, were a number 6 seed, but disappointed with a loss to Loyola Chicago on a buzzer beater. I do think this Miami team is the best team since that team a couple of years ago that made the NCAA tournament. And Miami does bring back a lot of guys from last year's squad. The only problem is for Miami, last year's squad was not very good at all, and they really disappointed. I didn't expect them to be some great team, but I did expect them to be a little bit better than they actually were. If you look at the ACC standings from a season ago in basketball, Miami finished 7-13 in the ACC and 15-16 overall. I feel like even though last year the team wasn't expected to be that good, there was enough talent for them to be a little bit better than that. And I feel like when I look at this year's Miami Hurricanes team, they right now for me lead that second tier of teams in the ACC with them, like NC State, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Clemson. I think right now, when you look at the ACC, the depth of the league is really improved, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with the second tier, and Miami leads that second tier with a lot of the talent that they bring in. So you're going to ask me, Zach, why do you like Miami to all of a sudden turn it around and be the sixth best team in the ACC, be a team that I think is going to make the NCAA tournament? How do you feel about that? What exactly changes your opinion about this Miami team compared to last year's Miami team? And I think the answer for me would be they're going to be much tougher at power forward and center. You'll start off at the number 4 spot where they bring in freshman Earl Timberlake, 6'6", top 100 recruit, top 40 recruit if you want to be a little more specific. And I feel like when Jim Larrañaga brings in these elite talents, that's usually when Miami succeeds. That's usually when Miami makes the NCAA tournament. And I feel like even though Earl Timberlake may not be the same kind of talent as a Lonnie Walker, Jim Larrañaga has this Miami team set up to be better because of the depth and returning experience that comes back to this Hurricane team. You start off with Chris Lykes. He's 5'7", I get it, but he is one of the best point guards in college basketball. He averaged 15.4 points per game last year, 2 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game, 1 steal, and he's going to be one of the more experienced players in college basketball. He really has been playing big-time minutes for this program since his freshman year. You also look at Cameron McGusty, the transfer from Oklahoma. He now has a year in Jim Larrañaga's system under his belt. He averaged 12.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game just about. So if you combine Timberlake, Lykes, and McGusty, I think that's one of the better top threes in the country. Plus, you have 2 breakout guys in Isaiah Wong and Harlan Beverly, 2 guys that as freshmen last year averaged about 7-8 points a game in limited minutes. And I do think this year, both of them are going to have much larger of a role. And then also the big guy they bring in, the transfer from Cincinnati, Nysier Brooks, who is just a tough guy who I think really is going to make a big-time defensive impact for this Miami Hurricane team. I believe Nysier Brooks is a kind of player where you show up to the court, that's the guy that you want to be on your squad every single time. And Mick Cronin, during his last year as the head coach of Cincinnati, that Bearcat team wasn't always supposed to be good leading up to the season, during the season, but Nysier Brooks on the defensive end was one of the main reasons why. And that's, for me, a big reason why I expect this Miami team to be much improved, because of the defensive side of the ball. I think last year Miami was just flat out not very good on the defensive side of the ball. They struggled. And in order for this Miami team to improve, they're really going to need to excel on that defensive side of the ball. And I think bringing in guys like Timberlake, a top 30 recruit, he's a lefty, and he has excellent ball skills for his size, and his developing perimeter shot, I think, will make him a matchup problem for a lot of the teams Miami goes up against. I think his strength and rebounding ability does give Jim Larrañaga the flexibility to play an extremely versatile lineup with Earl Timberlake as a small ball 4. And then you play him next to Nysier Brooks, who at the 5 is going to be very productive. He's super experienced. And then hopefully Likes and Wong and Beverly could just make enough shots on the perimeter along with Cameron McGusty. They also bring back some experience with size and length, including Rodney Miller and Anthony Walker. Both guys should have an opportunity to play this year. I think Rodney Miller is going to be that 7th man off the bench behind either Beverly or Wong, whoever doesn't start out of those 2 guys, and I think that will work out pretty well. And then they also have another freshman in Matt Cross, 6'7". I think he isn't that ready to make an impact, but at the same time, he is a guy that could provide you with some depth. And Anthony Walker, he only averaged 3.3 points per game, 2.1 rebounds per game last year, but he could play a little bit. He's a guy that's experienced, and Miami has a lot of good pieces here. I'm just going to be very curious to see how exactly Jim Larrañaga manages all these guys, because Miami, this is going to be a big year for them. I told you, this is going to be the most talented Miami team since the team with Lonnie Walker a couple years ago. And with Jim Larrañaga and everything that went down with the FBI situation, that really didn't put the Miami program in that good of a spot. And now Miami, over the last 2 years, hasn't even come close to making the NCAA tournament. I think Chris Likes is the kind of player where you don't want to waste his college career. He's been such a good and consistent player. I think Larrañaga has done a nice job building the roster around him in order to succeed. But at the same time, I think we all know it's not about recruiting. It's just succeeding on and off the floor. And yeah, I really think this Miami team could be a pretty good squad, and I expect them to improve. It's a big year for Jim Larrañaga. I think a successful season for Miami will be just make the NCAA tournament and go from there. And if not, it's going to be interesting to see where they do go from here, because there are going to be a bunch of people that have this Miami team as just an NIT squad. They won't think that the roster pieces fit together that well. But I think Miami, in terms of the teams of this middle tier in the ACC, Syracuse, NC State, Clemson, Vatech, Georgia Tech, all of those teams, I do think Miami has the most talent out of those squads, and that does put some pressure on Jim Larrañaga and this Canes team to at least be somewhat successful.